Hello, hello everyone. Welcome back. It is March. I have decided to make this available to everyone. I have not even done a reading, but I just feel a moral obligation to allow everyone to kind of watch this video. So if you are new here, welcome. These videos are normally just for patrons, and we do them every single month. And you're going to kind of see the outline of it. Basically, we do a little intuitive reading, then we do individual readings as well, and then we follow it up with an astro forecast. That I have been researching for the last weeks, months. March is a big one. March is a really big one. We'll get to the astro forecast at the end. But during my March readings, I set the intention of, okay, what about this group? This group, anyone that comes here to watch this video, what do they have going on? So my bias is a little affected just knowing March's astrology. So I'll be very interested to see what pops up for us intuitively. The first thing that I want to do though, I just want to pull from this book. I want to know what is going on. No, I want to know why. I want to know, before we even read anything, why is March happening the way that March is going to happen? Okay. So we have day 100. Life knows things you don't. It's heard conversations you haven't. It's realized the truth about some people you have not yet completely come to know. Trust life when it seems like the very things you want most suddenly no longer want you back. You have to believe that life is protecting your heart from any further damage. It is ensuring you will not waste another hour of your precious time on what's not in your best interest. Life is not turning its back on you, so you must learn to not turn your back on it. Interesting. I think this one is maybe like more personally important to some people. This one is just kind of about like slow living, slowing down. So I do feel like that's maybe another theme that's coming up. Feel free to pause and read that if you want to. All right, I shuffled that 8 million times. Let's set some intentions. Okay, wow. I just was setting some internal intentions saying, help me figure out what March is about. Tell me what the energy is. And I just felt like I dropped into my body. And I felt like I needed to put up a shield and get very serious. All right, let's see. So the first card that we like to pull is the overall energy for the month. Rainbow. I will take it. Take a breath, be still in your heart, and believe in what dreams may come. Oh, I want to cry. Oh, this feels like such a relief. Like, not saying that it might not be crazy, but this is definitely giving the energy of hunkering down and believing in the vision even when the storm is possibly happening. And maybe the storm is not happening for us, but I love that this is coming out. I'm also hearing LGBT themes, like you're protected, you're safe. Hope, shut up. Hope, confirmation, transformation, spiritual awakening. I'm here for it. I'm so excited now. I'm just going to read from the book. Just because this is our overall theme, I want us to like really take away this card. So if we're ever feeling a little lost this month, we can really remember this one. Rainbows are a universal symbol of beauty and hope. A rainbow occurs when sunlight shines through raindrops, which act as tiny prisms in the sky, becoming a welcome sight at the end of a rainstorm. Rainbow has entered your spread to renew your sense of what is possible. It's a happy sign that it's letting you know the storm is gone and brighter days are ahead. You are about to go through a transformation that is joyous and happy. Unlike some transformations that are dark and ominous, this one is welcome and begins a journey of extended happiness, love, creativity, or peace. Take a deep sigh of relief, as it means your troubles are finally at their end. If you have hurt someone in your life, this card can mean they are ready to forgive you and move on. Likewise, it means you too are ready to offer your own forgiveness to others, freeing your heart of further pain. In finances, this card can mean an unexpected windfall or opportunity is on its way to you, or the end of some financial trouble. For a career, it can mean a promotion or finding employment. For all other readings, this is your sign that good luck is about to fall upon you like a pot of gold at the end of a rainbow. We also have St. Patrick's Day this month. It also serves as a yes in yes or no questions. Oh, that card. Okay. I'm super surprised, honestly, to have pulled this card. At least I know my bias isn't infecting it, right? So, rainbow. I do feel like this is kind of what the advice is, what the energy is. So even because I am hearing that it's not that like your month is just going to be peachy keen amazing. Like I do feel like that's the case. I am hearing that for some of you, the transformation that's going to come is so great that it is going to be like night and day. You're going to feel so hopeful and so excited. For some of us, it might just be that like as the storm is happening again, as the rain is clearing, we are searching for that hope. We're searching for the rainbow. We are believing in what dreams are going to come even while we're waiting out the storm. And I find that very interesting too, because we're still in Pisces season for the majority of the month, and then we move into Aries season. So there's just that water theme of like the storm, and finding the rainbow after the storm. So like, I just feel like overall, the advice in March is find your rainbow, find your hope, during these chaotic moments, if there are any for you, because a lot of that card said windfall of money, relationships like happening. I will say, we do have 2 eclipses this month, and eclipses can bring huge changes, new beginnings, new endings, huge endings and huge beginnings, especially. And so it might be that these eclipses come in and really shift things for the better, which I absolutely hope for us. Okay, so what do we want to look into next? So I'm asking how this energy is showing up. Oh, love it. How the energy is showing up, this hope card. How's that rainbow showing up in our personal lives? And a lot of it is expansion, emotional expansion. Like we're allowing ourselves to feel, to open up more, to allow more in. The 8 of Cups might be an overflow of emotions, but that overflow, because I'm hearing it can feel a little drowning at times. It's to help you cleanse and clear out so that you can accept more and expand and hold more. And then we have the Death card too. So this, again, like this is coming from transformation. This is coming because things are dying that are no longer serving us. So the Death card is scary because we're like, oh my gosh, I have to let go of these things. I'm clinging to them. But what's the beautiful thing about death is that on the other side is rebirth. It's always a cycle. Things don't just die and stay there. There's always something new on the other side. And that's such a huge theme with this rainbow. It's like we have to remember the hope that's on the other side of the storm. I keep getting so emotional. Like I'm feeling clairsentiently just like the tension and the anxiety being released and just being like, oh, okay, I can do it. And again, I feel like this is more I don't want to say towards the end of the month because I almost feel like it gets worse, but like I feel like we're finding little pockets of this throughout the month. I want to ask, and this is the Pocket Lenormand deck that I got sent to me. I will also link it down below. But I love Lenormand because basically you use it to be very literal. So I'm just going to ask very literally like what the storm is, essentially. What we're needing to find hope from. What's the storm, Spirit? Interesting. One that tests our faith. Very like egocentric, like faith being tested. Because the fox represents being manipulated, like self-interest, maybe even being a little bit clever. So like, I'll just say what I'm getting. It's almost like, I wonder if there's too many people, too many voices that are trying to like manipulate what's happening and make like testing your faith. Yeah, because this is, I'm just going to pull one card. Any more clarification on this? We also have the child here. Essentially, I just feel like this is kind of trying to like encompass all of us here, and that there's a lot of like new fresh starts that are coming in, which is Aries season. It's the spring equinox. But it's like either making us question our beliefs, question our spirituality, or feel like it's like manipulating our intuition. But I think some of this is also good because it's new beginnings, it's new fresh ideas. And you know, like the cross combined with the fox can also indicate that we're taking on like a literal new entrepreneurial role in like a spiritual way. And I'm just asking like how that's bad. Like, you know, so I think this can be maybe that other people, maybe even like new people who are saying that they're like spiritual gurus, are like affecting you, maybe giving you the wrong advice here. Or it's, you know, for some of you, it's that you're starting a new business venture, literally like a spiritual business venture, and it's just overwhelming. It's a lot. And you're trying to figure out like what needs to be let go of. That's interesting. Not the storm that I expected. Yeah. I just pulled another card to clarify, and I pulled the High Priestess in reverse. So it is a lot of lack of clarity. It's not trusting your intuition and not going to your intuition to find those answers. So that's such a perfect segue into my next question that I always ask every month, which is like, how do you trust your intuition? How do you use your intuition? I feel like I'm supposed to read the book for this. This is recognition. I want to pull one more just because it seems like an important theme. Time to share. This is definitely a calling for some of you who are wanting to do like a spiritual practice, wanting to step up. It's time to share. Even just like in your smaller community, or even with friends or family, like it's okay to give that hope and that silver lining, that rainbow to those around you. But this recognition card often talks about like recognizing the signs and synchronicities and really more so validating your own psychic ability. No, I mean, like, yes, but this is also like getting recognized for your work as well. This is like just, you know, and maybe that's why this month is so good too, is we're, you know, maybe the transformation is that's coming through is a business transformation, because this is saying like you're going to get recognized for your strength, your accomplishments, your skill, your talents, your goals. So there is some positive forward movement on that in your life this month. Yeah, and the recognition is also just about like recognizing the signs, like actually paying attention. I think I had a reading yesterday with somebody, and it was like, you know, you can ask for signs, but you have to remember to actually like pay attention. Like, are you looking out for them? Are you recognizing them and validating them? Because that's the other thing, is when you get those signs from the universe and you're just like, I don't know if that was a sign, maybe not, maybe, you know, maybe I'm just crazy, maybe I'm just making that up. When you do that, you don't validate your psychic ability. So you really have to take everything as not a coincidence. Stop seeing everything as a coincidence. So guides, that being said, what is our biggest obstacle for this month? Bibliomancy. Our biggest obstacles are intuition. Seriously, it's like we're blocked. We're not seeing clearly. Bibliomancy is like using, I don't even have to look at this. I know what this is. It's, you know, with Easter, Ostara, the idea of picking off the petals from a flower and saying, he loves me not. Didn't we all do that as kids? Like that is bibliomancy. It's using flowers to divine. Like you can use anything in nature to divine. It's time to escape all of the noise and become still with the guidance that is pulling you inward. So I think I've said this before, having a spiritual practice, having like a pretty solid, like I know how to connect to my intuition, I know how to go silent, I know how to go inwards, escape all the noise, have that this month, because your biggest challenge is not listening to your intuition and just being drawn into the chaos of all the logic and the craziness. And that makes total sense too, because we have a Virgo eclipse, and that Virgo eclipse is really going to ask us to stop being in our head, being logical, and stop micromanaging and just feel and allow that to flow. One thing I've just been like told to do, and I'm just sharing this if it resonates with anyone. I've been told this month, like anytime I'm feeling like chaotic, go outside and garden. Just like clean up my yard for the year. My yard is like a mess right now because we just chopped down to 3 huge trees, which I'm really sad about. But they were like really bad, like, what are they called? Like the trees that like cause a lot of damage. Like they're like weed trees essentially. So yeah, that's just side note. I'm gonna be in my garden whenever things get chaotic this month. Like that's what I'm gonna be doing. So even if you want to take that, like literally go out and garden, like March is gonna be my month where I clean up my yard and get back in touch with my intuition. Maybe that's not how you do it, but just again, like just there if you want some advice. But especially because, the spring equinox is about the life coming back to the earth and really getting in touch with that. I just asked too, like, what is the biggest thing blocking us? Is that there's more information that we can't see this month. It's like we don't see the whole picture quite yet. So just know that as you move throughout this month, you can't see the whole picture, and that's okay. It's not about figuring out the future. It's about connecting to your intuition now to ask, what is the medicine I need right now? Okay. How do we thrive this month, Spirit? If we want to really just have the best month ever, even if there is chaos, how do we thrive? Garden party, embrace the coming of things worth celebrating. There is such like a heavy focus here on remembering what your goals and your dreams are, remembering what the hope is, remembering what's coming next. Like if you want to take this month to plan the exciting things, like maybe it's that you've got a wedding later this year, or maybe, you do want to have like a big, barbecue this summer, or, just like something big that you want to plan for a kid's birthday. I also feel like community is important too through March. Like, remembering that I do have a life, I do have things to look forward to. This is, something that like I'm going to plan and be excited about. Like even having an Oscars party. I guess that by the time this comes out, Oscars is like the next day. But find things that are worth celebrating and plan for them. Get excited about them. I feel like the energy of March is so similar to like all of 2020. Do you remember how it was like you just didn't know what was coming next, so you didn't plan anything, and you just sat around and waited for like life to happen? And then it was really hard for us to kind of like get back into things, because it was like, can I do this? Am I allowed to do this? Like, can I plan things? You remember how that energy was? Like, it's very similar. Like, don't stall. Still plan, still get excited. Like literally, I give you permission to plan out a whole vacation, even if it's like one that you're not going to take for another 2 years, or maybe even at all. Like, find something to celebrate, get excited about that. I want you to share it in the comments down below too. Like, what's something you can think about this month to find hope, to find that rainbow, that kind of like silver lining, the light at the end of the tunnel. It's interesting too, because the Astro Dice here is telling me that like we're finding a lot of like, this is like positive movement, like finding the North Node here in the 11th house in Aries. Like literally this month is all Aries energy. Even that second eclipse is an Aries eclipse. Like Aries is like, just do it, don't think, just take action. But North Node is like soul purpose, destiny. It can also indicate life purpose. And this is showing up in the 11th house, which is like humanity, the community. So it could be just on a smaller scale, your friends, like feeling really connected to your friend group, your community, like taking a lot of action to like take care of them, guide them, like again, this North Node is giving me the indication with this of like sharing what you believe, but also like kind of like cleaning house, to be honest. I wonder if some of us will kind of walk away from relationships during this month. But I do think this is more of a larger scale thing because the 11th house can indicate social networks, social groups. It literally is like the internet, everyone on it, the world, humanity, medicine, AI. So there is a aggressive movement, but just know that it's a movement for the better. It's a movement to find more of a true North Node. Again, it's like maybe we're seeing all of these things to help us get more to a place of like equilibrium. There's a lot of hope to be had in March, and I needed that. And I hope that that kind of like helps you as well. And the last thing I like to ask is there anything else, anything that we're missing that we really need to know about March? Explore. Explore, learn, expand your horizons, absorb and download new information, venture into new terrain, brainstorm, and gather new ideas. So this might be a good month to like pick up a new hobby, to think about things in a different way. It could even be exploring, like literally finding somewhere new to travel to. It could even be like locally going on like a hike or something. I'm just asking like more literally what this means. I have sun and man. The sun in Lenormand represents like joy. What else does it represent? Confidence, success, warmth. So finding, interesting. I just pulled a clarifier because I was like, who's this man? And we also have man and woman. So this is like within your community. It's with yourself, possibly with your partner is what I was hearing for a lot of us. Or again, like, you know, anybody that you're close to, find and hang out with the people that you find joy, success, opportunity with. Again, there is this other message here of somebody, like maybe one or two, maybe a lot of us, we are seeing a really good like forward movement with our business, getting recognized, maybe partnering up with someone as well. This could be new relationships. It feels more career related, but it could absolutely be romantic as well, depending on like what's happening for you this month. Interesting. This could also be learning from other people, but again, focusing on optimism, positivity. Can we get any more idea? I know it's a man and a woman. It's just hope. They're just like, focus on the rainbow. Focus on the rainbow, focus on hope, success, because that's how we're going to kind of find that light through the storm, the rainbow through the storm. Love this. Love, love, love. Okay, let's move on to the individual readings now. I'm going to clean this up. See you in a second. In this part of my monthly forecast, I usually get into doing individual readings. So everyone that's at this tier gets an additional card, and I talk to them for a couple minutes about their month and what they can expect on top of this. So if that's something you're interested in, you can always pop over onto Patreon, join the membership, and you can get your private reading for April. And again, this is not the only perk that I have on Patreon. We also have Q&As. We also have a live night once a month where I read everyone more in depth. And we also have practice nights where we practice reading each other. So lots of additional perks. Hope you join us over here on Patreon. Look at this. Look at this nonsense. And this is just one of like 8 pages. All right, it's March. Let's do this. I'm actually really excited about it to see how it turns out. But yeah, just remember to take this whole section with a grain of salt and know where you're at and if you are mentally going to be okay like hearing this. Because again, the astrology right now is just rough. It is not normal. And this is just like a hugely consequential month that really informs truly not only this summer, but then this summer will really inform next year and then the next like decade or so, because again we're going into like the great rearrangement. Let me just see if I have the quick notes right here. I don't know if you can read my crap handwriting, but 2018 to 2025 is now. 2025 to 2033 is called the Great Rearrangement. So 2025, we're in this like in between here, and it's just like crazy pants. Because we're ending something old, we're beginning something new. This is the year where everything changes. Where we start and where we end are two very different places. And astrologers are guessing that the Great Rearrangement is going to be just like a great geopolitical rearrangement, which I'm already starting to see that for sure. Side note too, this is the honeycomb. It's already so beat up. I've already dropped it in water, but this is honeycomb. This is my personal astro forecast, and I highly recommend this because like this wheel is for me and my houses. So like I'm a Virgo rising, so my houses start here. And so it's great because like I can see all the transits. This is the whole year, and I know what houses they're gonna hit. And it's like adjusted to me. So I would highly recommend this if you are really into astrology and want to learn. Obviously, I'm not going to like point out things on this and read it to you the whole time. I'm just referencing this, and I'm going to keep it nice and clean for you right here. I'm also going to use the Astrology Podcast calendar that I'm going to put on this side so you can just reference what's going on. Overall, March is the storm. It is a cascading of events. It's hard to really tell what way it's going to go, because it's like one event happens, which affects the next event, which affects the next event. Usually everything's very separate with astrology, but there's so many things happening this month, which is why astrologers are so like, oh my God. And I've watched a lot of people's opinions. Some people are very optimistic, some people are not. I'm going to try to give it to you as just logically as possible. Also, how you can look at it for your personal chart as well. So yeah, first off, right on day one, March 1st, we've got Venus going retrograde in Pisces. It's already been in, or not Pisces, sorry, Aries. It's already been in Aries, but now it's starting to move backwards. Venus going retrograde is tough because it's a lot of reevaluation. Anytime anything is retrograde, just think redesign, reevaluation, re-looking at things. And so we're re-looking at themes in our life regarding Venusian themes, Venus themes. So that's like what we find joy in, what we find pleasure in, what we find like our relationships to be. So like classically, Venus going retrograde usually involves a lot of breakups, a lot of like relationship scandals. That's not going to happen for everybody. But it can be a kind of heavy look at like, you know, what you're reevaluating. And so you have to look at where Venus falls in your chart. No, oh, and I wanted to say, where's my phone? I would recommend downloading this app and following along this portion of the video. So I would get Time Passages. That's the app that I use. It shows the current like chart of where we're at. I'm recording this on the 28th. Look at how much crap is in Pisces. And then you can save your own chart. You can also save other people's chart. So that way you can look at your own personal chart and follow along, because this that I'm showing you is not going to look like the planets are still in the right spot, but your wheel is going to be different basically, because I'm a Virgo rising. So it's going to put my Virgo here. Anyways, so you're going to want to find where Venus is in your chart. And it's really easy because you just look at Aries. Look at Aries. And what is the house? What is the house that it's sitting in? For me, this is my 8th house because this is number 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So Venus is in my 8th house. So I'm doing a lot of reevaluating, a lot of re-examining my shared finances, my debt. What else governs the 8th house? It's a lot of like just like me and my husband's like money, or money that I might share with other people, other family members. Like I have a family business that I'm also a part of, so very interested to see how that'll turn out. So look at what house it's in, and that's going to be where we're reevaluating. Usually it's a very unconventional way of reviewing things. There's often a lot of delays at this start of the, Venus retrograde. So don't be surprised if like things are just not working or not moving forward. And basically Venus is going to be going retrograde all the way until April 12th. But at the end of this month, it's at least going to change signs. So like it's currently in Aries. It doesn't like to be there. It's in its fall is what we say. So it just means that it's tougher, essentially. It's impatient. It wants to decide quickly. It's a little too impulsive. So during this time, don't be too impulsive around the things that are coming up, that review. Like you might be reviewing your finances. Like for me, it's reviewing finances, partner money, debt. But I'm not going to take any action on it. I'm going to think twice. And just Venus in general, think twice before you make any big purchases, anything beauty, like changing your hair. Even if you're like, I'm done with this relationship, like just give it a second. You don't want to do a whole lot or act on a whole lot when Venus is in retrograde. Around the 22nd, I will say, the 22nd is when you're going to start to see a little bit more resolution. Like it's not going to be done yet, but the 22nd is when it's kind of like the midpoint. And you're like, oh, okay, maybe I'm starting to see where this is headed, and I'm going to actually start like moving in that direction now. It's when Venus moves into Pisces at the end of the month that it'll feel a lot better. And we'll talk about that towards the end, because that's not towards the end of the month. I'm going to go chronologically. I forgot to mention too, before any of this, we still have Mars doing its shit. We're still coming off of like some Mars energy from like the 23rd. So you're probably feeling a little bit exhausted in wherever Mars was for you. Mars was in my 11th house right here. So like feeling exhausted with social circles, friend groups. Definitely true. I went on that like little birthday vacation and I was just like burnout from socializing, burnout from having to deal with like all of the social stuff that I had to get back to when I came back from my trip, and just like I was a little exhausted there. So you're feeling that. Mars is kind of like, at least it's moving forward, but whatever it was doing in your life up until this point, it's still smoldering. It's moving forward slowly. We're starting to kind of like work on, whatever it was that Mars came to do for us. But again, like it's still smoldering. It's still like hot enough that it could affect this Venus retrograde, unfortunately. Basically, now that it's moving forward, it's not really affecting like that house in a negative way. Before it was affecting that house in a negative way, but ever since the 23rd, it's kind of like, at least it's positive, but you're still coming off of it. And just feeling that effects until kind of like May-ish. On a more global scale though, it's like kindling. We've got like smoldering embers from this Mars that still exists that could affect some of the stuff that happens after this. All right, I'm gonna have to pause there and come back to this later tonight. All right, apologies everyone. It's many hours later, different lighting, and I came up with this crafty thing and I laminated it so that I can start using this for our stuff. So I'm gonna fill in really quick just what Venus is doing and Mars. All right, so I thought this would be a good teaching tool as well for those who are wanting to learn. Let me know if you guys like this. It's like, if I'm gonna be talking about it anyway, I find it's helpful to learn while you go. It also helps me to teach because I'm learning as well. So just know that this whole thing could be shifted around. Like last night, Pisces was down here. So it's like constantly moving because, right, the earth is constantly rotating. So our perspective of these like change throughout the day. But the order is always correct. And the planets relative to each other are always going to be correct as well. So we have Venus in Aries, and it's about to go retrograde. So it's going to move back this way. And then we have Mars is hanging out in Cancer, and it's finally starting to move this way again. And it's going to stay in Cancer basically all of this month. Okay. Then on March 3rd, we have Mercury moving signs. It's moving into Aries. So right now it's in Taurus. By the end of the month, it's going to be in Pisces. So we've got Mercury here right now, and it basically moves here on the 1st. And so Mercury's moving into Aries. Essentially, all you need to know is it's going to spend a lot of time here in Aries for the majority of the month. And again, you want to see what house that's in for you. So for me, this is in my 8th house. I made this chart just like from my perspective. Virgo rising is on the ascendant. So all of my houses are in line with the signs, but this is going to look differently for you. So this inner wheel might be like different, but essentially the planets aren't going to move. They're still in the same spot, but you just have to identify, oh, okay, Mercury's over here. Maybe it's in my 12th house or something like that. And so for the most of the beginning of this month, the first half, you know, we're dealing with Venus going retrograde and what that looks like for us. We're dealing with, again, that Mars like smoldering energy, and then Venus changing signs. And then it's the eclipse. Our first total lunar eclipse is on March 14th. Oops. Wrong pen. I don't know what the symbol for is an eclipse, so I'm just going to write eclipse. It's a lunar eclipse in Virgo. And so this is going to be the first series of eclipses in Virgo and Pisces. So if you remember back in January, the nodes shifted, and the nodes indicate where we have eclipses. So they moved into South Node in Virgo, North Node in Pisces. So I'll just like throw this up here for reference. So that's kind of where the moon nodes are right now. And usually you deal with this for 3 series of eclipses, and it brings usually a beginning, a middle, and an end to a story. So let's talk about what that looks like for each of us individually. So eclipses really bring major beginnings and major endings, but we do often feel the energy of the eclipse about a week before. So around March 7th, you're probably going to start to feel that eclipse. And again, it's going to be helpful to look at what house it's in for you. And that's going to show you where it's going to show up. So for me, that's going to be, since it's in Virgo, here's Virgo, it's going to be in my first house. So that basically means my identity, my ego, my body, anything that's like appearance or identity is really going to get like a dialing down. We're going to be really forced to like lose something because it's the South Node in Virgo. And the South Node indicates like basically areas that we need to let go of. So it's more so the endings of this. Sometimes with the eclipses, you might not really see it until like the next eclipse, and then you start to recognize the pattern. So that's why it's good to just take notes of like what was going on around that time. And again, it's like not just that day, but like that week, the week prior, like what's coming up for you. See like where you're feeling pulled essentially. But this is when things really start to like quicken, the pace starts to quicken, everything feels like it's starting to go really fast. But essentially like having this lunar eclipse on the South Node, it's almost like we have like a sudden disappearance. There's no energy here. So it kind of makes things easy to let go of here. And with Virgo, Virgo is the energy of like micromanaging. It's nitpicking, it's being over analytical, working too hard. So it's going to show up again in different ways for everybody. So if this shows up in your 7th house, for example, you know, that might be that you're being called to let go of like working too hard on your relationships, putting in too much effort. Virgo energy is like, where are you being way too analytical? Where are you being way too nitpicky? Like, let go. Basically, you know, just any of the Virgo Pisces energy this year with those nodes is going to be all about stop controlling and go with the flow. Surrender your control, surrender the routine, surrender the structure that you have around this. So it could even be in family, like the fourth house of family. It's like, stop trying to control your family too much. So, let go of the routines. You want to lean further away from the south node, which is Virgo, of being too controlling, detail oriented, and more into the north node of Pisces, which is like going with the flow, being intuitive, being more spiritual, being more creative in how you embrace things. So again, just for my own purposes, so you can see an example, like this is going to show up in my first house. So there's literally an identity, something about how I identify, how I present myself, my ego. There's going to be a real letting go of that. Not really excited about this for me. It's very much like, who am I in a lot of ways, because it's the first house is your identity. But just know with these eclipses, again, they happen because things need to be redistributed. Like we need to let go of something so that something new can come in. And that something new might not come in until the next eclipse cycle. But this is like redistributing what you can hold. You can only hold so many things. So you're being called to let something go around this time. And I think the best advice you can like have is to just listen and don't try to force it. Don't try to control other people. Don't try to control the situation. On a more like global scale, some astrologers are calling it like a bubble bursting. Like basically there's no more energy for things to exist, especially like in the US in the money sector. So some astrologers are speculating of like a government shutdown around this time. Literally the last time that this happened, like this eclipse cycle, it was that the Soviet Union collapsed. Yeah, and other people are guessing maybe it has something to do with like unions, restrictions to unions. Because not to get too into the weeds, but this is also opposing Saturn, which just adds a whole nother thing to it. So this is not going to be it's not going to be a fun lunar eclipse. It's going to bring you some tough lessons with that Saturn energy. Things are going to feel like they just disappeared. Things are being taken away. But again, with eclipses, it's like illuminating what in your life needs to disappear. So go with the flow instead of resisting. Know that something better is trying to take its place. And then right on the heels of that, the very next day, we are going to be experiencing Mercury decides to go retrograde. It's like, we're just going to add this to the mix. So basically on March 15th, it starts to move retrograde. It's starting to move this way. It won't fully go into Pisces until the very end of the month, but just know now it's starting to move backwards. So instead of it moving forward, we're starting to get more of that Mercury retrograde energy, which is of course like the quintessential like snafus with technology, with communication. Don't sign contracts during this time. You might have technical issues. It's not something you need to like necessarily like stress about. Mercury is also about how you communicate. And it can be redesigning, refocusing on how you want to communicate. Like the last time Mercury went into retrograde for me, I redesigned my my basic psychic skills course, and it wasn't like a big negative thing. It was actually really great. It was like I needed to go back, redo this, make it a lot better. It's not always like this big awful thing by any means. It's reimagining how you're going to communicate, how you're going to present yourself. So for me, it'll still be in that 8th house, but now instead of positive communication, positive stuff around the 8th house, all of a sudden we're going to get redesigning it, reevaluating it. So now I'm not only reevaluating my 8th house with Venus, I'm also reevaluating my 8th house with Mercury. So, and you're going to have this too, just in a different house. So there's a lot of reevaluating in one specific area of your life. So yeah, we have 2 planets in retrograde at the same time. Just know here, patience. Patience. Don't act rashly. Don't act quickly. It's not worth it. And with both Venus and Mercury, and like where Mars is, this is going to just come out very nasty, like very violent words, very very violent communication. It's not going to be nice. So expect to see that maybe in your own life and maybe just out in like a more global sense. Now, the sucky thing about after March 15th is that, the next eclipse is coming towards the end of the month. They're always right close together. There's always two in a row, essentially. And because of that overlap, you're getting the effect of this eclipse a week before and a week after. And the next eclipse that's coming, you're also getting the effects of that a week before, a week after. And so just know that between March 14th and March 29th, which is going to be that last eclipse, that's going to be the hardest part of the month because you're just living in the shadow of both of those eclipses. And on top of it, there's a ton of other garbage going on, which we'll get into. So on March 19th, we have Ostara, which is the spring equinox. This is when the days and the nights are equal. It's when, the significance of this is basically when we have the sun move back into Aries for the first time. This is the correct normal way that this goes is this way. So anything pointing this way is retrograde. So the sun is now moving into Aries. So we are at an astrological new year. This is when, it technically starts. This is Aries season. So we're just going to get more of that Aries energy to to deal with. We're moving out of Pisces season, a lot more gentle, a lot more flow-like, and more into like Aries, who is just quick, it's fast, it's bullheaded, it's, a match that's being lit. Aries don't think before they do, they just do. Aries is the god of war, the god of conflict. So, on a positive note, Aries season is great because it's like you finally feel the motivation to go, to take action, to get things done. But that action can absolutely be negative action, one that's not helpful by a lot of means. But yeah, so then we've got that on the 19th. Okay, and so again, we're still in this shadow period. It's like that in-between period, and it's just not going to be nice or fun. And on the 22nd, again, we're basically getting to the midpoint of Venus going retrograde. And so at that midpoint, when Venus goes retrograde, I think there's like a kind of a symbolic story about Venus going down into the underworld. Hence why we can't see her in the night sky. And she's going on a journey, a dark night of the soul, literally. And she's figuring out some serious things, and she's going to come back up. So this is the midpoint. This is when she's at the depths of the cave, but she can see a way out now. And so this is the midpoint for you of just learning what this Venus retrograde has been about. And you're starting to see a glimmer of hope here. And it's taking a turn towards resolution and towards hope. It's no longer like stressing. I know I've already talked about this. But it's no longer like, what is this about? It's like, okay, I know what this is about. Now I'm going to focus on what do I do with this. I wrote down that on the 23rd, I just put volcanoes. I don't know why I wrote that down. Something must be going on. Volcanoes. Okay. Now the 24th, just 2 days later, that's when we're seeing the midpoint for Mercury. So we know on the 24th, we're halfway there. This is the midpoint. This is the, again, like we're able to see the glimmer of hope, see what the purpose is. We're no longer trying to figure out what it is we're reviewing. We know what we're reviewing and we're moving forward. And just like for both of these midpoints, just to add even more craziness to the mix, I'm just mentioning it so that you know why, I'm making it more simple, but at the same time, it's doing a cazimi with the sun. Both of these are cazimis, which basically means like the planet's getting really in line with the sun, which intensifies both of these energies. So we're just getting like extra Mercury in retrograde, extra Venus in retrograde. But at least that's a turning point. So in Venus and Mercury's journey. And then this is when shit starts to hit the fan. So on March 27th, Now, Venus is still moving retrograde. It's been moving, it's gotten to its midpoint, still going retrograde, but now it's changing signs and it's hitting Pisces. So, boo, 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 boo. And now Venus is finally here in a new house for you. This is now in my 7th house, which means we're now reevaluating something else. We were reevaluating this house before, now we're reevaluating this one. And to fully explain this, I'm just going to move to the next transit that happens, which is just 2 days later on March 29th. And that basically is that Mercury, also in retrograde still, is also moving into Pisces. So this is where we get that boom, 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 boom. And now we're actually here by the 29th. And we have Mercury and Venus still going retrograde, now both in Pisces together. So just to connect the dots here, Venus and Venus, Mercury, Mercury. I don't even know if you can see that very well. I know this is probably like super complex, but I can't even explain how oversimplified this is. Okay, 27th. So yeah, basically now we have both of these planets going retrograde in Pisces. On top of that, they are also conjunct Neptune and Saturn. I'm not going to even like get into this. But basically this is where we get into like that battle of the sexes. For Venus, we're reevaluating like our romantic delusions, our idealism. It's like, where are we being disillusioned again in this house? Like, so for me, it's perfect because it's in my 7th house of relationships. So that means I'm going to be looking at my relationship with my husband and being like, what's working here? What is not working here? And what sucks about this is Mercury is going to come in and really just make things extra confusing, just lovely. Because there's a lot of like not clear communication, right, when Mercury is in retrograde. So you have to like watch out for things not being clear. Basically Mercury is intensifying this Venus. Things are not accurate. Communication is not clear, both within your personal life, but also within the world. Just there's a lot of like intensification of these themes, but at the same time, like they're just, it's not being communicated clearly. And so going back to this like Venus in retrograde theme, like right around March 27th, Venus is now in Pisces. She likes it a lot better in Pisces. She's still not even close to being done going like retrograde and dealing with all of this stuff, but essentially she's back to her throne in the story. And I will say that if you are like super interested, there's like a 8-hour podcast of Venus retrogrades throughout history that the Astrology Podcast came out with. Like there's so much information. They also did a whole podcast on Mars and the whole Mars cycle that we're going through. There's just like so much information. It's really cool when you really get into it. But yeah, Venus is back on her throne. She's reemerged. She is back on her throne, but it's kind of this like melancholic, like return from the underworld. She's seen the collapse. There's something in your life that is just going to feel ruined. It feels like shitty, sucky. But you're moving forward with power at the same time. It's like when the things around you are like totally falling apart, but you just feel empowered to like move forward. I'm trying to think of like movie scenes and where that happens. Like the only one that's coming to mind is like Avengers, like when all the shit's falling apart, but the Avengers are like assembling and they've got all this power and they're going to kick ass sort of thing. And right around this time, too, is when we want to start paying attention to what's going on in the world, especially with leaders, but specifically with Mercury and Venus retrograde in Aries. The last time that happened, Hitler died. But just know for you in your personal life, with both of these moving into a new sign, you're really being called to like evaluate where you're being a little bit disillusioned. Like where are you being realistic? Where are you being disillusioned? Again, in the things that you find joy and pleasure and comfort in, and also the way that you communicate. And it's going to give you even more information when you look at what house it's in. So for me, I'm going to be highly reevaluating like my partner, like, you know, my relationship with my husband. Is this bringing me joy? If it's not, what do we need to do to fix that? Are we communicating clearly? If not, how the fuck can we fix this? I already told my husband, I was like, this could be bad, so be nice to me, and if you feel like you want to leave me, can you just like wait an extra month? And just to top the cherry off, no, this isn't even the cherry. The next day, the very next day, a lot of this is happening right towards the end of the month. We have that second eclipse. So, sorry, same day. No, yeah. Or no, same day. Yeah, Jesus, fuck. March 29th, we've got our second eclipse. This one being a solar eclipse in Aries. So whereas this eclipse was 1 of 3, this eclipse is 3 of 3. So we are wrapping up a cycle that we started already. The first one of these cycles was last April of 2024. I'm totally forgetting when the second one is. I'll put it in a text. And essentially, this is the third. We are wrapping up this story that was started in our lives. So eclipses, again, major endings, major beginnings. By now, you should know what this one is about if you did a good job, like, writing down what happened during the last two. If not, you might not really remember. Which is why I encourage you for this next Virgo Pisces one to like start writing those down, what's happening, what's going on. We'll just put this here. So that first eclipse is happening over here. Second eclipse is basically happening over here. And again, you just want to look at what house it falls in. For me, it was the 8th house. And it's crazy how this works because this is the first eclipse cycle I was paying attention to. The first time this came around in April of 2024, I basically learned that my family's like RV company was at a very like what's the word I'm looking for? Like very close chance of being lost. Because basically we discovered that like we didn't have the correct permits, and it was like a big scary thing of like, oh shit, and oh, it's going to cost a shit ton of money. And also we're in trouble because we didn't do this on paper correctly. And how hilarious is that? 8th house, debt, shared resources, shared money. Crazy. And then the second time that eclipse came around, I think it was actually last September of 2024. Further of that story, what happened is by that date, we found out that we were actually like semi-okay. We, how do I explain it? A lot happened between then, and we were basically thinking about selling the property. But by that middle eclipse cycle, we actually decided that we did not need to sell. And one of the sellers fell through literally on that eclipse day. And it basically cleared the way for us to go back to our original plan and get the proper permitting and essentially long-term make us more money because we didn't have to get rid of the property. And we had somebody who's more willing to pay for all the permits when beforehand, you know, they weren't. So I tell the story so you can see that example. And so this third cycle is coming up at the end of March, and I'm very curious to see what that looks like because as of right now, we are getting the permits, and my guess is that by this date, the permits are complete. We're all done with this, and it's actually like we have it in our name, and we're starting the next chapter of this story. But if anyone's really interested, I'm happy to tell you just how it like completes itself. Now, again, check out what house it's in for you. On a more global scale, this is the shit to pay attention to this month, this eclipse. This eclipse is coming in to wreck things because this is the one that I've talked about that 32 years ago, Waco happened. I don't know how many years ago, but the Bay of Pigs also happened. Usually around this energy, the solar eclipse being in Aries, the way it is, and the other things that are going on, it usually indicates a big geopolitical turning point. Something big. Some people were guessing possibly an economy crash. There's definitely a story going on with Israel, Palestine, like the Iran war here, 100%. Because we know on the first cycle of this Aries eclipse, I think they maybe started like shooting missiles at each other. The second time, I want to say they shot missiles and maybe the pagers exploded, if anyone was paying attention. You know, a bunch of people had pagers on them and they all like exploded. And so this third time is supposed to be the completion. Some people are concerned because there wasn't really like a beginning and a middle. It was just an escalating. And so they're worried that this is just going to be another escalating. And it's more of like the first set of books in a series of many books instead of just, oh, book 1, 2, 3, it's over. It's actually book 1, 2, 3 of 9 books or something. I hope that makes sense. What's interesting about this as well, and just a lot of the minutiae of the planets during this time, is that eclipses, solar eclipses, the sun, you know, and in Aries. Aries represents the head. There's a lot of eclipsing of heads. There's a lot of eclipsing of figures, a lot of leaders stepping down. So something is probably going to happen in the Israeli war. Something is probably going to happen. There's usually a lot of assassinations around this time. MLK was assassinated during the last one of these. Biden stepped down on the second one of this. President Lyndon Johnson also stepped down during this. And with Mars being where it's at, like with all the other planets doing their thing, the astrologers that I watched basically equivalated it to lots of guns being pointed at heads. Lots of energy that just is not favorable, and so they just are guessing a big geopolitical turning point towards the end of this month. It'll be really interesting to see how this unfolds. Feel free to come back and keep checking in. Or if you're like really serious and want to follow, definitely check out some of the other astrologers that do it way more in depth than I am. A lot of this too is going to inform us like what's going to happen this summer and what's going to happen, you know, a decade from now, what this great rearrangement is going to look like. So coming out of March, it'll be very interesting. And just again, all the while, this doesn't help because Mercury is still in retrograde. So like we're getting a lot of confusion, a lot of miscommunication, a lot of deceit. It's just and nasty, vile things like. So I think this is why a lot of people are a little concerned about what's going on. And now the cherry on top. March 30th. Oh, I keep using the wrong pens. Need to just do different colors next time. March 30th is when we have Neptune changing signs. Neptune is moving into Aries. Now, Neptune has literally been in Pisces. I should have made this smaller, but like Neptune has been here for the last 14 years. Yeah, it's been here the last 14 years. And this is one of those big outer planets are changing signs. And that's going to happen a lot this year. So this big ass outer planet is changing signs. It is now moving from Pisces into Aries. And again, Aries energy, aggressive, warlike, it's fast, it's quick, it's fire. Neptune is all about like dreams, visions. It can be very cloudy, very confusing. So it gives you this very enchanting like dream in Aries. And so it's kind of this like maybe idealization of the warrior versus like the idealization of like the spiritual person here in Pisces where it's been. You know, Neptune is a lack of boundaries. It's disillusion. It covers language. It covers engineering. It dissolves boundaries. It makes things more confusing. But when it dissolves those boundaries, it opens the way for new opportunities. As long as you're kind of maintaining clarity, maintaining structure. And so now we're going from the idealization around Pisces themes of like being compassionate, being kind, being spiritual, being intuitive, to now we're idealizing the warrior, you know, the hero, you know, and that can be both bad and good, and I'll get into that. But I want to speak more to like what this looks like personally for you. So personally for you, you would just want to see, again, what house Neptune is moving in for you. Again, this is like my chart. So now I'm getting Neptune moving into the 8th house. You see how like everything is concentrated in the same area? So now I'm getting like a lack of boundaries, disillusion in my shared finances, shared money. So it's like, how the hell is this going to turn out? My hope is like maybe the boundaries will come down and maybe more money will come in, more money in my shared finances, but it could also be like more debt. I don't know. Now this is going to be a theme that it's probably not going to be overnight. I mean, sometimes you do see that shift overnight, but it's again, Neptune sits here for 14 years. So you're going to really see it as more of like a decade of your life in the long run. I'm going to spend some time on Neptune again, just because it's such a big planet here. And this is the second of our big planets changing. So, you know, we had right at the end of the last year, we had Pluto move into Aquarius. So I'll just kind of like write this down here. Pluto is now changed. Neptune is now changed. And so all we're waiting on is, I believe, Uranus and Saturn. Saturn comes in May, Uranus comes in Gemini. So that's why in July, again, if you listen to my year ahead forecast, that final Uranus moving into that sign, into new sign essentially. Now we've got all 4 outer planets in a new spot just for a brief moment this summer. Before it moves out, and then they all move back into it next year. So we're getting a taste of what this like new situation is going to look like for the next couple years. But yeah, after the end of March, we've got 2 of these planets now in new signs. Now, prior, you know, Neptune in Pisces, again, it's like everyone is an astrologer, the idealization of being compassionate to everyone. Everyone is a spiritualist, everyone's a saint, you know, that was kind of like the themes. We saw this like emerge a lot with like being politically correct, but at the same time, it was just like an over like ridiculousness with it. That's kind of what Neptune brings. It's like we all want to be politically correct and get after everyone, but at the same time, like we're not doing it the best with that like lack of boundaries. Neptune brings in a new dream. It brings in a new dream about Aries, but it's dream logic. It's not logic, it's dream logic. It's not, you know, nitty gritty. It's not detail oriented. It's spread out. It's disillusioned. So there's this question of like, are we empowering the hero, or is this like the stupid, brutal, violent hero? Some things that happened in the past when Neptune was in Aries: the steam engine was invented, dynamite was invented, Underground Railroad was invented. It often, you know, talks about how money is distributed, how money like changes and moves. Again, it governs language, engineering. This one is always a huge one for Russia. Russia is always either like strengthening or worsening. It's like the ties back to Neptune and Aries in Russia are just ridiculous. And that's the shit that makes me believe in astrology, is just seeing the past patterns. Essentially, there could be like a new financial order here. However, the more concerning thing is that one day after this happened in America back in the past, the Civil War started. And then on another cycle of this, 2 months later, World War I began. Also, the Spanish succession also started at this time. China also had a civil war. Apparently that was like at the most bloody peak here. So lots of wars, unfortunately, with Neptune moving into Aries. And I feel like we can all see that coming for sure. And what makes July more intense is that basically in July, Saturn comes in and sits right on top of Neptune in Aries, which just makes it even worse. So we'll talk about July when we get there. But at least July is not going to be as bad as March. Or maybe, I don't know. And basically, Neptune is going to hang out here in Aries until about October. It's going to piece back into Pisces for a hot minute before it fully moves into Aries for the rest of the year. And the next 14 years, essentially. And so yeah, that's just Neptune. Just Neptune moving into Aries. But again, look at all these things that you had going on prior, like the eclipse. It's gonna be a lot. And I'm very interested to see how it turns out. I hope it's for the better. I hope it's good. You know, I hope this becomes like an idealization of the hero and like saving what's happening, you know? There's definitely positive ways that this could go and negative ways that it could go. And I am not adept enough to try to make any guesses either way. I'm just trying to give you all the information. But yeah, I mean, the fact that like the cycles back to like war, assassinations, what else did we have going on over here? More assassination, bubble bursting. I think I forgot to mention one of these definitely was in relation to the 2008 stock market crash as well. I think I don't have those notes here. And then Iran and Israel and like all of these like things. It's just like, it's pretty hard not to like guess where this is going essentially. But I hope it's short-lived, and we shall see. Y'all, I think I covered everything. Ooh, that was a doozy. Normally, there's not ever this much going on. And when there is a lot of stuff going on, it's usually like, oh, this planet's over here, this planet's over here. But because there's so many planets doing this back and forth right in the same area, and again, like, I'm not drawing the other planets that are making aspects to this. Like, it's a lot, so it's hard to really... at least from what I've heard, like understood, it's hard to kind of see what's going to impact what because it's all so close together. So like, I think the best way to visualize this is like as a cascading event, like one thing affects another thing affects the other thing. Like I loved this visualization. Well, I didn't love it, but I think this is a really good visualization that Austin Coppock gave in the Astrology Podcast. He said it's not just an earthquake or it's not just a storm. What it is the earthquake that then causes the shock waves to make the tsunami, and then the tsunami comes on shore and breaks all the buildings down, and then, you know, one of those buildings being a nuclear plant, which is now leaking and causing even more new problems. That's like the Fukushima, what happened. And so he's comparing it to that. It's not just one thing. It's this thing hits this thing, hits this thing, hits this thing. So, that's that's a more symbolic approach of looking at it. And if you're trying to communicate it, that's kind of what's going on. And then that leads us into April. Essentially, you know, why this energy is carrying into April is this all moves right at the end of March. So it kind of continues into April. But by the end of April, these things start to move forward again. We get Mercury and Venus back out of retrograde. Things are looking a little bit more easy-ish. Mars will also in April still be doing its thing, but it'll finally kind of get out of like its like shadow period. But it also moves into Leo, which is problematic. I was gonna just kind of go forward and move and give you some like brief advice for month after that, but I was like, you know what, we're gonna leave it there. We're gonna just leave it at March. March and April a little bit. Just know that April we're just again continuing this energy, unfortunately adding more stuff, but we'll get there when we get there. Again, one of the ways I want to support you all here on Patreon is every single Tuesday we've got something going on that night, whether it's a psychic development game night or a member live where I'm offering readings. We are also going to have just hangout nights to come talk, read. I could definitely reiterate a lot of what's going on if there's any like lack of clarity here. And maybe just even chat about like what house this is happening in for you and why and when it's going to end. I'm more than happy to like sit and hang out and do that. So join us. The first one is going to be like really quick here on the 4th. But yeah, guys, I hope that this was helpful. I hope that you stuck around for the astrology part. This is the most. It will never be like this. Like, let me just tell you. This is like the most in like a centuries, like seriously. So don't think that this is normal. This is not a normal month at all. Thank you so much, guys. Have a good March and I will see you next time. Alrighty, bye.